Hey everyone, I am Caroline Cory. I am the writer, director, producer of a new film called Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible. The film is about the power of the human mind over our physical reality. How do we create that? But not just in theory. I wanted to actually demonstrate how that could be possible. And I wanted to bring in the film experts from different fields who have done research, extensive research, who really, really know the subject of the visible and the invisible worlds. And of course, I met my dear friend Ben Hansen, who has been investigating the paranormal. I'll let him tell you more about that for years and years and years. And he's got all these devices, all these equipment that can measure different types of anomalies. So Ben, thank you so much for
Caroline.
doing this. How
You're
are
welcome.
you?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for
Yeah,
having me on.
yeah, this is great. You know, the film just came out like 6 weeks ago, and people are loving it. And because I think nobody's really been able to demonstrate, to show how we measure. We talk about the paranormal, the other side of the veil, but in a film format, we were able to actually measure those types of anomalies. And you're an expert. I mean, I don't know anybody else who's got all these devices and things like that. But for those who don't know you, how did you get into this whole field? Because I know your background was working for the FBI. So how did this whole thing happen?
Well, let me first start out with I use the term, well, I don't really use the term expert loosely because, or I do use it loosely, I should say. It's funny because, in these worlds of the paranormal, ufology, even cryptozoology, looking at Bigfoot creatures and things, it's kind of hard to say that anyone's an expert because it hasn't really, and I think your film really addresses this point, it hasn't been embraced by the mainstream scientific community, right? So there's really no credentialing that's officially accepted. You can't go to like UFO school
Right.
and, right, and get a degree and say, well, okay, you know the facts and you know all this and that. But ironically, there's so much to know. There really is so much to know within this body of knowledge of what has been done and what people are experimenting with. So to answer your question, how did I get into it? I think you and I met at a UFO conference, and your last film had just come out, right? And it was awesome. I had friends contacting me well before I met you, and they're like, Caroline's going to be at this UFO conference. I watched it on Netflix, her film. It's awesome. You got to see it. And so I already knew all this stuff about your film before I even saw it. And what I really loved was this exploration into topics that I think a lot of people are interested in, but there's just so much kind of to know, maybe, if that makes sense, that people don't know where to start. And what you did was like really simplify, like a child would look at it and say, hey, these are some strange occurrences and phenomena going on, and we're going to approach it like a child and ask the big questions. And so your second film, when you asked me to be a part of it, I thought this is awesome because it's not just about paranormal, which we explored. It's not just about, having these energy conscious connections with other people. It's everything unseen, everything that has this connection that may be operating in a unified theory. It may be, or it may be separate things. We really don't know. But the fact is, there's evidence of it. It's going on. And curious people, which I consider myself one of those, that's how I got into it. It was really like, I guess, college when I started doing paranormal investigations. When I say paranormal, I mean the ghost stuff. I didn't believe in ghosts. I thought absolutely this is like, when you're a kid, you watch Ghostbusters and Casper, and I'm like, ghosts don't hang out in places. But it was actually an EVP, an electronic voice phenomena, which we explore in your film, that got me hooked. When I first captured a voice that wasn't there before, I was like, oh my gosh. And I played it again and again. It kind of freaked me out, you know, because here you have voices that weren't there on the audio recorder before, and they're clearly there. They're not explainable by radio waves or things. And so I really focused on the scientific, I guess, breakthroughs where I think science is now catching up. I shouldn't say science, technology is catching up to where we're able to now validate some of these things that we just, you know, a lot of people put in that category of religion, like, oh, well, it's a belief, but you can't prove it. And I think that's absolutely wrong. So anyways, I got into that. And yes, I do have a background in law enforcement. I did work for the FBI for a little bit. I worked for state level investigating some nasty things like child sex crimes. And so that experience, I don't know that it translates per se to what I do now, but it's the curiosity, you know, it's like finding out things that I really love.
And the investigation. I mean, that the investigative kind of mind that you have.
Absolutely. And anything you do, I've always told people, if it's worth having an opinion, it's worth checking the facts and doing your own homework.
Yeah.
Because like we have so much today of what I call grazing or browsing. People read a headline or they'll dip into, you know, political or whatever, and they take a snippet of it and they're like, okay, I'm an expert. Like, well, you don't really have enough to have an opinion on anything. So, you know, I think you should be informed.
Yeah, I mean, when I say expert, I meant you have so much experience in the field, you know.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and
Thank
I
you.
know, yeah, and you even had your own your own TV show, Paranormal Investigation, and so I know that you've done a lot in that field.
Yeah, so
And
I was just going to say I fell into that part of it. And what's cool, it's like what you do, is because I
yeah,
know you are a very curious person, right?
yes,
But people can't make a living off of curiosity normally unless they do something to show the rest of the world. And so when you're in film, TV, or if you're an author, you actually get to get paid for doing this. And some of the stuff I was doing on my TV shows, absolutely crazy. You know, I'm like,
yeah,
wow, I'm getting paid to go look for mermaids, and
yeah.
it's awesome.
So in the film, I wanted to do an on-camera experiment. And I wanted to invite my friend Cory, who's actually just showed up
Oh,
in the
cool.
field. So it's a very nice surprise. I'm going to bring him in a second. And so his reaction, you know, when we did that experiment was just so crazy and fun. But let me bring him in, and then I want to tell us what this experiment was about. And still, I want to ask Cory if he even made sense out of it, you know? But before I bring him in, let me play this quick clip from the film so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Okay? So hang in there. I will be right back. I'm going to show my screen. Cory will be right there. Was there a problem with the feed?
Yeah, I'm not. It comes up like freeze frame, but it's not playing the video.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you had to hit play and it probably would have worked. Or
Yeah, Cory, hang on. I just want to play that clip for people to know what we're talking about. So let me try one more time.
already.
And if it doesn't, can you text me?
Sure.
Thanks. Because it's such a cool clip.
This experiment we're going to do, you'll speak into the red tape recorder. Then what we're going to do is transmit through this induction coil to the blue tape recorder. The blue is the receiver, the red is the transmitter. We're going to take your voice and I'll have you make a message on the red tape recorder.
Okay.
So the first thing I want you to do, if you could take the battery out of the blue recorder for me.
Sure. And there's a blue battery in it too. Isn't that convenient? Okay.
Great.
Put that there.
So for quality control, we'll take the blue recorder and we'll just set it over here out of the way.
Okay.
Okay. Now the red recorder, I would like you to leave a message.
Captain's log, stardate 2018. This is Captain Cory of the USS Red Recorder leaving a message that may be detected in other universes or dimensions.
Great. Awesome.
Love that. That worked, right?
It did. I could hear it and everything.
Okay, let me bring Cory in. Hello, my dear friend. How are you?
Hello. How have you been?
Cory, how's it going, man?
Yeah, it's so good to see you. Did you watch the clip?
I did watch the clip. Not only did I watch the clip, but of course I've seen the film.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was such a fun scene. Everybody talks about it.
Yeah.
And then how you came up with this line spontaneously. That was hilarious. That was so fun.
Well, it's not really a line if it's reality, right? If you're just experiencing the moment and reflecting, then I guess it's not really a line. But as it were, I've done a lot of improv in my career, so that's something I'm very used to, is kind of filling the time, I guess you would say.
Yeah. How did you like being in a film that talks about the invisible world, you know, all these realities that we think we know, but there's so much we don't know about? How is it for you to be part of this project and to do the experiment?
First of all, well, I was thrilled that you asked me to do this, just because I, as you know, but you know, many out there don't know, I am very into the whole spiritual realm, metaphysical realm. You know, I study a lot about the interdimensional philosophies, the idea of multidimensional living, and I have my own theories about stuff. I've had a lot of experiences, otherworldly, I guess you could say, experiences. And I'm not talking about the ones that everybody knows about. I'm talking about a bunch of stuff that nobody knows about because I've never written about it or put it out there yet. And at some point I will, but for now it's my own little private secret. And being a part of this was kind of, I guess, my dipping my toe into that foray. So I thank you for the opportunity. It was great. And also great meeting you, Ben. We had a lot of fun together.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
It was awesome because I, growing up, used to watch your movies and everything. It's really cool when you find somebody in this business that it's kind of like a lot of these subjects. I find that people were afraid to talk about them before.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you're into UFOs or you're into ghosts, and especially if you're in the public's eye, you got ridiculed, and now it's okay.
Right, exactly. Well, at the end of the day, they made it so they almost oversaturized it, between movies and television and, the ghost hunting shows and the UFO shows and the ancient aliens and the this and that. And it's just, there's so much, there's so much. But I feel like, there's good and bad with all of it, because there is a lot of information that needs to be out there to debunk a lot of the myths, and let people understand that, just like the stuff that I fight for with sexual targeting of children, or sex trafficking, or things like that. They always want to flip the script. They always want to turn the story around, and the main thing is distraction. That's the main thing. So whatever you're talking about that people don't fully comprehend in this reality, whatever, whether it's spirituality, whether it's religion, whether it's philosophy, or whether it's something as obscure as alien activity or extraterrestrial life or ghosts, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, there's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be people who are out there deliberately to actually put misinformation out there, to change the conversation, to derail things by putting obscure and unbelievable stories out there, so that it mucks up all the consistency of the real stuff that's being released. And this is what happens on a regular basis. That's what QAnon is all about. I mean, it's just oversaturation of polluting our minds with meaningless misinformation. Very sad.
Yeah.
But that's what I tried to do in the film because of this, because there's so much misinformation and weird stuff. And it's like you said, because people don't understand the subject. And so I tried in the film to bring as much credibility, as possible by inviting all these scientists. And we're talking about top caliber scientists. We're talking Harvard, UCLA, Stanford. I mean, and also doing these experiments live, to demonstrate these things. So I hope that, there's always going to be the people. I mean, you could do something in front of them, you could levitate, you could disappear.
Yeah,
and like, oh, there's a magic trick somewhere, it's like,
But I think oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that, the thing that's great about the way that you present things is that it's very obvious that there's no magic trick, because you clearly, kind of explain what you're doing and what the experiment is. And then, you kind of have it backed up by a physicist or a scientist or a doctor or somebody who knows their field. And they've done these types of things 1,000 times. So it's not like you're out on a limb and trying some crazy experiment that nobody's ever heard of. You're just doing very practical things that most people should know about, and if they don't, then that's just kind of the amazing part, is that we can't get the right information out, and yet we have this information highway cluttered with disinformation.
Yeah, exactly.
So you do it in a great way. You do it, it's you're enchanting to watch, because I love how childlike you are, and you get so excited, and your passion for it is genuine. And I think that the audience goes on a ride with you and says, this girl is not only a doctor, not only is she intelligent, not only is she beautiful, but she is entertaining and knows her stuff. So I think it's a great ride, and I think everybody who watches it has a good time.
Thanks for saying that, because like you and I talked a lot before we shot the film, and I told you, for me, I started when I was 5 years old. Whoever's typing, is somebody typing? That's kind of.
No, I think that's bad reception.
Yeah, it's bad reception. We'll just keep going. It's interference. Interference. Yeah. So this was my life story as a kid, and so many kids go through the same thing. He just, yeah. And
I'm freezing. I don't know if you see that.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I think just like every now and then we have some interference. But yeah, I mean, I think my story is like many people's story, and that's why I wanted to, kind of take people along. But same with Ben, when we talked about what type of experiment we should do. and I said something simple, but yet that demonstrate that there is something we do not see, but that is at work here. There's a mechanism we don't quite understand, but it is real. So we did this tape recorder experiment. Can you tell us very briefly, because we showed the clip, Ben. Can you tell us how this worked? And I would love to hear Cory's understanding of what happened.
Yeah, sure. So my good friend Bill Murphy, who was on one of my shows as a co-host with me on Fact or Fake, taught me this. And what's really cool is, okay, so in the ghost hunting world, right, you see people go around with tape recorders and they record voices that aren't there. And I at first thought, well, that's easy to fake. And it is easy to fake. But I didn't believe it until, like I said, I captured some EVPs of my own. And what we did on your film was take 2 tape recorders and basically use what's called an induction coil, which is it's a piece of iron wrapped around with metal, and it creates a magnetic field. So we take one of these and we input it into the mic of one of the tape recorders, and the other goes to the speaker. So what we had Cory do was talk into one of the recorders to record his voice, and then we muted it by placing a jack into this induction coil, and it actually becomes a broadcaster to broadcast wirelessly to the other tape recorder, which picks it up in the mic. So for people like, I don't understand the technical stuff, basically what we proved is that we can transmit a voice not through radio waves and not acoustically like I'm talking to you, but through electromagnetic induction. Now, if there is a spirit, a soul to the body, and that person passes on to the next side, the theory is it's possible they're somehow either able to manipulate the magnetic field, or maybe they don't know they're doing it, but it's communicating in that way to our recording devices, and that's how we're picking up these voices. So it takes it from that woo-woo kind of like, oh, that's crazy, where people easily dismiss it. And we were sitting there at a kitchen table, right, and taking 2 recorders and saying, no, I can show you how electromagnetic fields can transmit voices.
Which is crazy. Cory, what did you think? I mean, you were there. We did it live. There's no cutting, no editing. You recorded in one tape recorder, and then it shows up on another tape recorder that wasn't plugged in.
Right, and had no batteries.
No batteries.
Well, the battery when we recorded it, but you're right, we took them out so that we could prove it wasn't recording his actual voice while he was talking, right? We transmitted it later,
we took out the batteries for the receiving end. We had the batteries in the one we were recording on, and we took the batteries out for the other one for the receiving end, right? And then when you were doing your voice, so they didn't pick up your acoustics, and then we put them back in for the transfer. Right. So the point is that it isn't being transferred through a microphone. It isn't being transferred through an audible instrument, right? It's being transferred through energy, but through a magnetic force in the energy, which is basically sucking it right out of the air in a way and putting it into a magnetic form, imagine grabbing serial numbers out of the air, kind of like if you were reading code, and you grabbed just the numbers right out of the air, and you were able to then transpose them into another set of serial numbers. And that would basically be the same idea. Absolutely. I'm looking at the comments here.
But Ben, can you say, like, once the voice transfers, how does it kind of go into the tape recorder that is not plugged in? You know what I mean? It's one thing to transfer. And also the idea is that we heard, I mean, obviously Cory was there recording, but does that mean something could happen from the other side of the veil? You know, that somebody is speaking on the other side and it's being transferred through the electromagnetic into our space.
Yeah.
You know, but how does it then show up on an actual tape recorder?
Well, the theory is, so like Cory was explaining, the batteries were out when we recorded, because I want to be able to prove to you that second recorder was not recording his audible voice. So that's why we took the batteries out. When we put them back in, it does involve some electronics, because it's the pickup coil is receiving the induction, and then it's recording it on there. But I think what you're saying is, the implication is amazing. And so I'm reading a comment here from this is Alea Heather Crystal. Is she says, is that one reason why sometimes people can hear others' thoughts? And the idea would be, what if EMF field, electromagnetic field, is actually a variation of thoughts that uses the same energy, right? So I could sit here and by, you know, thinking a thought, plant it maybe in your brain, and you're picking up on it through the same invisible energy.
Exactly, because it's a voice in your head.
Yeah, it's a voice in my head, and if I were able to learn how to harness it and project it, you know, to someone, or if you have someone who's very sensitive, that's why there's some really cool experiments that were done at Princeton University, actually, and they wanted to look into this ESP thing. How are people across the world, let's say, it happens a lot with twins, or people who are like really connected, right? And let's say someone cuts their hand with a knife, and across the country or world, that twin or the person connected to him was like, ow, you know, something's wrong with my hand, or my sister's in trouble, right? Because of that connection.
Yeah.
And so the implications are just wild of how this could happen, not just with voices. Yeah.
Cory, do you believe in telepathy? Now that you've done, oops, sorry, you're mute. Now that you've done this experiment,
because just look at all the electromagnetic energy that's coming across from me trying to do this interview with you guys. You can hear it.
Yeah, I know. I think these are some people on the other side trying to interfere, honestly.
Apparently, either that or maybe it's some aliens trying to get in on the conversation, or, you know, just good old internet hacker trolls who are doing their best to...
I so believe in that. So what's on the other side of the veil for you, Cory? Is it disembodied? I think it's your mic. I think it's your mic.
I think it's the internet connection, to be honest.
Yeah. But we'll work through it.
Well, I've got to run in a minute. So go ahead. What were you going to ask me?
Okay, last question. What is on the other side of the veil for you? Is it disembodied? Like, is it like people who are deceased and trying to communicate with us? Is it angels? Is it different type of being? Is it extraterrestrial? Like, what do you believe is on the other side communicating with us?
Okay, so for me to try and, you know, answer that question or be some kind of definitive anything would be foolish, you know, because how am I to say? All I can say for sure is that one thing I know is reality, and this is something that is scientifically proven, but it wasn't proven for many years, is that we know that we live in a multidimensional universe. That is proven now. It wasn't proven for many years. We believed for many, many, many years that it was only 5 dimensions, right? That was always our belief, was 5 dimensions. But now we've, in recent years, in recent studies, learned that there was 13 dimensions that scientifically, on fact, have been proven. And of course, there's theories that there's up to hundreds, if not thousands, of dimensions. So, given that as a basis of everything, anybody who says, oh, you know, there's nobody else out there. If there was anybody else out there, they would have showed up by now. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure they have, based on all the evidence we've gathered. But that said, you know, the point I think is that there's so many realms of possibility. There's so many realities. There's so many layers. There's so many different, unique combinations, because
Yeah.
you know, you could be talking about what our reality is and what those planets are like out there, and you could also say, well, okay, here's one for you, and this is a deep one. I'll leave you with this. This is
Okay.
one of my great theories that I really love, and I don't really share it often, but I figure this is definitely the place for it, so I'll lay it on you. I have a theory about space-time continuum, and this is kind of a wild one. But my theory on space-time continuum, using the multi-dimensional reality as a basis for the theory, that I believe it could be possible that in our reality, when we look out at the sun, we look out at the moon, and we look out at these stars, and these stars that are, you know, obviously visited by satellites and visited by different types of probing cameras and radar and sonar readers and all sorts of things to collect data on these seemingly lifeless planets. And my idea and my concept is, what if they're really not lifeless? And what if they're really not, you know, vacant and have you know, terrible atmospheres that are unlivable? What if in our reality that's what we see, because we're only capable in
Yeah.
our minds of understanding so much at
Yeah.
this point. And that's why, as we progress as a race, as we progress as a planet, and as one unified being across this globe, we develop and we mature and we begin to understand new ways of thinking and new understandings of these different realities. So,
But how does this connect with time space?
because I'll tell you, I believe that instead of there being a time space continuum where it goes back, you know, 2,000 years or millions of years or whatever your beliefs are about how the planet came to be, what if there is no backwards and forward straight line, but what if it's all happening at the same time?
Yay!
What if history is literally happening now, today? And that's why when we go out and we dig for dinosaur bones, we're always finding new species of dinosaurs. Don't you think it's odd that after millions of years, we're still finding brand new species of dinosaurs, and not just like one bone, but a whole body of a brand new creature we've never seen before, right? This happens quite frequently. So my whole point is, what if that dinosaur didn't really die 20 million years ago? What if he died yesterday? But in our reality, it has to be 20 million years ago, because we can't see him in our reality. He's
Absolutely,
not there.
yeah.
He doesn't exist. But if we were able to kind of step sideways and see what's happening in another version of our reality, another dimension, he might be right there and he might be laying there dead. But in our reality, what we find is a 20 million year old bone.
I love it.
It's pretty cool, right?
It makes so much sense to me. I mean, you and I had this conversation.
If I had all day, I would go into some of them, but
Yeah.
I'll give you one brief one, which is a really cool one. And this is really what started this whole theory for me. Was I read an article, this was a real article in the LA Times, and this is way back before we had things called fake news and all the propaganda stuff going on. So this was just an honest, regular story that somebody sent to me. It was because it was so odd, but it was about an excavated mummy.
Yeah.
And they went into Egypt, they opened up this tomb, and they excavated this coffin of a mummy. And when they opened it up, they found the mummy's body. And on the mummy's body, on his finger, was a Rolex watch ring.
What?
No way.
Something that was developed in the late 70s, early 80s.
Whoa.
Wow. This is the timelines.
I remember when they came out, but I don't remember I haven't seen them in forever, right? So they were a very limited time thing that came out at a certain period of time, and somehow it was on the middle ring finger of this mummy, and they took a picture of it.
Wow.
That's incredible. This shows the timelines. Yeah.
I mean, how could that have happened? Explain that. It's impossible to explain.
Yeah.
They didn't have Rolex back then, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. This conversation reminded me, first of all, you guys, we've had so many long conversations, you and I was so thrilled to have you in the film because I know this is the real you. You have so much depth, so much character, and like I really, really love your spirit. So let's have that conversation again. I know you have to go.
I know, but
everybody's like, I love you, Cory. I love you.
I wish I could see the comments. I wish I could see the comments, but I love you all too. If you're out there, I love you. And don't forget, you know, my movie is still out too, so it's streaming right now on VOD. So anybody that hasn't seen it yet, please go check it out today. It's video on demand. Ben, I don't know if you've had a chance to check it out yet. But
I haven't. I need to do that, man. I'm glad you got it done and got that information out.
My truth.
What's the website, Cory? What's the website?
He just said it.
mytruthdoc.com. So my truth and then the word doc. So mytruthdoc.com.
Perfect.
Yeah. Please check it out. It's very important, as you know, and I'm so happy for your success, Caroline. I think it's great what you've been doing. Ben, I'm glad to see that you're still by her side, and you guys are enlightening people by the day. So congratulations to both of you.
Awesome. Thanks Cory. Good seeing you again.
Peace and love, guys. Superhuman.
Okay.
Peace and love. Bye.
All right, we'll see you, man.
Later. Bye. All right. So, hey, I think it was his mic, and I think he's somewhere far. Anyway, yeah. So we had some interference, or it's the aliens. Who knows? But, you saw the real Cory. You know,
his theory too is like not so far fetched because I've often said this, okay, because it is stepping out of something I can't prove, but the idea that time, right, is a continuum and that everything's happening at once, that time possibly could be a human construct. You know, it's something that we use to measure things linearly because our brains at this point perhaps haven't tapped in or can't conceive the possibility that these things are happening at once. And so maybe, you know, the grand creator's plan is for us to not need to deal with that right now, which I totally agree with. But when you look at things like dinosaurs, okay, so I've investigated a lot of cryptozoology stuff. So like lake monsters, for example.
Yeah.
And I've had some very, very credible people tell me they have seen huge, long necks, you know, bodies going under the water in a man-made lake. Okay, a man-made lake. And sometimes they get pictures or video of stuff that why would any logical person be able to say, well, okay, in this Loch Ness or this, you know, this lake or whatever, it's only a couple 100 feet deep. How could a prehistoric, you know, dinosaur be living in here and nobody find it, and it's been living for all these millions of years? And then Bigfoot, right? How does Bigfoot never get caught? He's just always disappearing. And I thought, you know, is it so far-fetched to think that perhaps these phenomena are also interdimensional?
Yes.
And we're sharing the same physical space, and sometimes they can manipulate and pop in and maybe manipulate something like the water moves, okay, or they're visibly seen for a little bit, or Bigfoot, you know, tromps around, you can hear him, you can see him, and he can, you know, maybe throw some sticks. But then you go looking for him and they disappear. And it's like, I know the skeptics would say, well, how convenient, they're just not there. But I don't know how else I can have very credible people and a mountain of evidence that something is happening, and pair that with the fact that we can't actually wrap our hands around it, and we should be able to find it.
Yeah, I think because our brains are programmed to see is within a certain spectrum. And so when these things happen, it's beyond that spectrum. So unless you can expand or extend to that spectrum, or that creature happens to be on this side, you won't see them. And so,
Yeah.
but countless and countless of individuals have seen and documented, and these are all credible people. But also, I mean, I've seen them for sure. We know at Skinwalker Ranch, there's all kinds of stuff seeing these. So I totally agree that it's a multidimensional existence that's simultaneous. That's what I teach, actually. So it makes so much sense. And I love your approach. And you see somebody like Cory as well, have that sort of intuitive sense that that's probably what is happening.
Well, and what you say, intuition is a great word for it, because it's like, I think we're all born with the same intuition.
Yes.
It's there. And so it's like, it's not like we're discovering, it's like we're rediscovering,
Yes.
So like we've been taught, we knew this before, and you use the word veil. It's like when we come to this earth, like our mind is clouded for now. We don't remember all the other stuff we once knew. And so when we discover it here, it makes sense and it feels right. It feels like, yeah, that the idea of multi-dimensions, or the idea about communicating to people and the experiments you're doing in your film, it's kind of like, I think we all knew that we had this ability,
Yeah.
and that we can find it again, right? And it's just amazing to see like the kids that are in your film too, and they're doing these experiments with blindfolds, and they're reading books, or they're riding bicycles and stuff. And it's like, I think they're perhaps closer to the veil because they're not as set in the world ways, and we're not like adults, where we've forgotten completely. And kids maybe are the best chance to tap into it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think this electromagnetic field, it doesn't like stop, it just continues on to whatever, even though we don't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. It just continues. And it's all connected to our ability to perceive it. I mean, literally yesterday, I did another test with a kid who's blindfolded. So because I want to do more conferences online to show people that this is possible, that this is not fake, this is also real. And I have folks literally, I mean, they're sitting on on wherever they are, and I hold up a card, I hold up a color, they're completely blindfolded, their eyes are taped shut. And blindfolded. And in fact, yesterday we had a blind kid.
Really? Wow.
And, yes. And so this is the implication are incredible. I mean, we're talking about something expanding the human consciousness to be able to bypass.
Well, we need to put on, I know you had a lot of really cool guests and experts on your film. Like, we should put on some classes where we bring them in, because I had people emailing me when your film first came out just a couple weeks ago, and they're emailing me and they're like, hey, they confused me with the guy who was doing the the experiment there, and he's like, hey, how can I take your classes, so that I can learn how to read with blindfolds on? I said, that's not me. But let me see if I can put you in touch with them, because people want to learn this, they want to do it, I want to do it.
Yeah, well, especially your kids, by the way, we have them go to superhumanfilm.com, because I knew that was going to happen. I knew it. Even when we were filming, the crew was like, I want to learn this, because this is real, like we're not faking. And so if you go to superhumanfilm.com, there's a tab that says, workshops. So when people click on workshops, they'll see all the online classes that we have, including the blindfold. We have one for kids starting next week, actually, and adults as well.
Oh, awesome. And it's all online.
It's all online, but technically you're supposed to do it in person, but because of what's happening, we're doing everything online. And there are people like on a wait list, because we're like, so I'm getting more and more teachers so that people can just start doing it now until we can get together again and do it in person. So yeah, this is real. And by the way, I didn't say this because we kind of got into this whole conversation. We're broadcasting on many Facebook pages at the same time. So wherever you are, we can still see your comments and questions. And if we didn't get to them, we will see them still on those Facebook pages, on mine, on Ben's, and I have several at the same time. So make sure you leave your questions. If we didn't get to it, we will respond. Ben, what do you want to share?
Well, I have, before we wrap up, I have one confession to make, and I'm glad that I don't feel I'm the only one who does this, but your segment in the film about telekinesis.
Yes.
So I've asked people, and I don't think I'm the only one who does this, but I've spent way too many hours just sitting there, like trying to, train my mind like a Jedi and move an object across the room. and I've always thought, though, like it would freak me out if it actually moved, right? Because I don't know how it's done. I've heard different theories. I've tried it on my own. I'm like concentrating so hard, and I'm like, what if I made that, mug on my counter move, and it moved a couple inches? I would freak out. So, but I know that it's innate within us. We have the ability somehow. One day I'll learn to do it. So, anyways, that was my confession. My projects. I have a. TV
but wait,
show.
before you, I want to answer you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because we're teaching. There's one class on telekinesis on the website. In fact, I'm going to offer it to you. I'm going to send it to you, and I'll walk you through the whole protocol. And that's exactly the problem, because when you sit there and say, what if it moved, and then it does, there's a little bit of preparation that needs to take place before you get there. So I'm going to send you that class. And for those who are interested, again, superhumanfilm.com, go to workshops and you'll see that class as well, because you can do it. And as you know, in the movie, not only did we do it in person, but we did it long distance.
Yep.
And we did it in a Faraday cage, meaning complete isolation. That's like crazy.
That's awesome. So there's another energy at play here.
Exactly.
And it's like we mentioned electromagnetic fields, but it's all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, or maybe a spectrum we haven't even studied yet. They are invisible, just like the title of your show. It's like they're invisible things, but they exist. And those energy fields may be responsible for so many of this phenomena of telekinesis, remote viewing, maybe even teleportation, or how people, there's strange, stories of people who spontaneous human invisibility.
Yes.
Right? They're standing next to somebody, and you turn around, and your friend's all of a sudden gone. And it's like, where did you go? I'm like, I have an open mind. I have to take it with a grain of salt in everything I hear, but I've experienced at least audible voices with people who weren't there, And so why isn't it possible that maybe there's some glitch in the energy fields and some people sort of, disappear for a second? I don't know, but it's all explainable by these energy fields that we don't have a grasp on yet.
Yeah, but when we do the telekinesis in a Faraday cage, then the electromagnetic is out of the question.
Yeah, electromagnetic's out of the question. So it's another field. It's another connection. And we could talk for hours. Let me suggest one, and I'm not plugging this book because I didn't write it, but it's called The Heart's Code.
Okay.
And if people want to read, I've got it right here, and I'm trying to remember who I want to say the author's name is Pearsall. But it was he works with heart surgeons, and I believe he's a psychiatrist. At any rate, he talks about these Princeton studies. And in Princeton, what they would do is they'd take a swab of DNA, from somebody's cells in their cheeks. They'd put that in a petri dish. Yeah. And I don't know exactly how they measured the activity of the cells, but they would put a person who had the cells in another room, and they would have them watch disturbing. And you're aware of this experiment, right? Watch these disturbing films and films about puppies and all that stuff, and then they measured the cell's activity of the person in the other room, and it measured the same parts of the things that were disturbing or whatever. The other cells that they once had and belonged to them are reacting in the same way.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not electromagnetic. Probably it's probably this, what the author calls L energy. This, whatever this energy connection is, we're always connected to it.
Yeah.
And whether you've met somebody one time, you will always be connected to that person in some way, literally changing their DNA and reacting with it.
Yeah. Oh, we can talk forever. Ben, tell everybody, what are you working on? Where can people find you for those who want to know more about what you do? Because we want to keep this up.
Sure. Probably the best way is just go to my website. It's benhansen.com, and it's HANSEN. And that's where I post everything that I got coming up. And of course, all of our UFO conferences were canceled this year. There's one going on this coming week, though, virtual. It's the UFO Congress.
Yeah.
And so there's great speakers and everything. People can sign up, and I believe you've been to that a couple times.
Yeah.
And then on my Facebook, if you follow, just look up Ben Hansen. I'm sure I'll pop up. I'm going to be announcing pretty soon, when the network gives me clearance, of a project I'm working on, of a new show. I could say at least that it deals with UFOs, and I can't say what or when it airs, but it's going to be awesome. We're finishing it up now, and so great things in that arena, as well as people following UFOs, if you're into it. Major, I guess you could say, disclosures of things happening this year, and so people are excited about that.
That's awesome. So anyway, we will put all your links, in the feed. So for everybody to see them on Facebook, on YouTube, everywhere. And I think the best thing is to follow you on your page. And then when that show is going to air, then they will be the first one to know. So
exactly. I'll put it up there
as well. Perfect. Oh my God, Ben, it was so awesome. It was so fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's we're here in Southern Cal, I am, and it's supposed to be 100 today. So if you're in a hot part of the country, everyone stay cool, and don't exert yourself too much.
Yeah, it was so great to see you, and I'll catch up with you another time. Say hi. Yeah, you guys, Ben has the most adorable kids. So anyway,
thank you.
Yeah, give them a big hug for me, and then we'll talk very soon. Thanks so much for doing this.
Sounds good. We'll see you later, Caroline.
All right. Okay, so you guys, I just want to wrap this up by showing you another clip that Ben was in, and then we will close this real quick. So I'll be right back.
We affect everything in the material world with our energy. So if we have good energy and we're putting good energy out to the world, then we're going to get good responses back. But if we're putting out negative energy all the time, then you're going to have negative come in and infect your life that way, until you make a conscious effort to stop. And once you go, I'm going to believe everything is good, everything is fine, it's all going to work itself out, and then all of a sudden things start to reverse themselves. Obviously, I believe that there is much beyond this reality. I mean, I have many variations on that. So if we're talking about the spiritual realm, or if we're talking about the interdimensional realm, or, there's a lot of different kind of understandings of what that means.
We probably occupy the same physical space. So if we do, but we don't see each other or all the time, what would you call that? And the dimension is just kind of like the only word that comes to mind. So multiple dimensions, yes, I think it's very possible.
The fact that people said, oh, well, this is God, I believe is just a limited capability of understanding at that time. What they saw in miracles and things that happened before them were unexplainable in any other way other than saying, that's God.
Okay, you guys, the movie is superhumanfilm.com. Make sure you watch it. All kinds of incredible experiments and beautiful imagery and talks and conversations. So thanks for joining me today, and Ben Hansen and Corey Feldman. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.